video, I test out this craft paper pad, which I have since bought a second of because I'm quite impressed with it. I got them at Dollarama. In Canada, it's a total of $4.60 once you add on the tax, which ends up being only 7 cents per sheet. They're quite nice paper and they give a good variety. The gray isn't quite as nice of a warm off gray as it's shown on the cover, and it's a little closer to barely an off-white. But it's still a nice color to work with as an option. I decided to roll randomly to figure out what I'm painting. I have many artworks to get done for the Great Tree Book, so I'm doing ones that are needed so that I can fill in everything I need for the book I'm working on. I'm making sure to only do stuff that I think would be ideal to do traditionally with gouache. I sketched the vampire fish off screen, and I looked at some very good reference originally. I Frankensteined together some photos to make a really good reference, and I stared at it for a while. But I didn't put the reference on my computer screen to work with, and the reference was left actually on the iPad. The iPad is also my camera, so I'm actually working entirely from memory here, and I'm painting in a bunch of the vampire fish entirely from what I remembered just looking at. I felt quite inspired and very much in the mood to work on this vampire fish, and I'd already mixed up a lot more gouache colors recently to when I was painting this and was very excited to do it, so I think that helped me do an even better job and work faster without needing to look directly at the reference. At a certain point, however, I don't record part of the process and instead look at the reference. For future illustrations where I'm recording it, I really need to transfer any reference I'm looking at onto the computer or literally print it out, because it's a lot better to be looking at the reference while working. However, it worked out quite well here. I just went through and counted my current entire collection of watercolor and gouache, and I actually, including custom mixes, I actually currently am up to 547 colors plus 28 hydrus, which makes a total of 575. I have some more empty pans, and I just ordered 120 more empty pans that come with magnets because, you know what? The more colors I have, the faster I'm working, the more paintings I'm getting done, and the more enjoyment I'm getting from the paintings. So I'm finding that adding all kinds of colors is helpful, and personally, even though I can work within a more limited palette for an individual piece, I like having all the colors, and I actually use them. I'm finding that the more I learn, the faster I work, and I'm continuing to do constant color studies and tests and mixes and take notes. I also have a whole book I'm doing of different color mixing notes. And even if it takes a while, I'm really understanding these colors as I go forward. I'm finding it better because each pigment has its own properties, and it's faster to mix certain things certain ways. It's also faster to have all this stuff pre-mixed. Because almost every color I needed for this fish was already mixed, all I had to do was rewrite everything, have it within reach, and then I was able to paint this fish incredibly fast. After looking directly at the reference, I added a lot more in and decided to come in with my darkest dark black and record just the pupil painting. This mix is called Event Horizon, and it's my blackest black mix, but now I actually have a lamp black watercolor which is pretty dark too. Here's a final look at the vampire fish, which I'm very proud of. I think it's quite good. For this one, Tail Club Salamandra. I rolled to have it be a Tail Club warrior and Salamandra for the race. Salamandra are salamander people, which is a race I'm going to feature in the Great Tree Book, or species, ancestry, and I did a lot of research. I was looking at a marble salamander reference in a similar angle, off screen on the computer. I really needed to do extra research for this one to get the pose and angle correct and work things out, so there was actually a longer research phase for this one. As you can see, I took out a bunch of miniatures. These miniatures were very helpful to get this angle and reference. I need to remember that I have a lot of D&D miniatures, and I can use those to help me with my art. I have terrain and furniture as well as lots of different figurines, and I can also use those to help me. The miniatures I took out here were ones that I thought would be the most helpful to look at things on very similar angles and similar poses. And I found it very useful to look at the three-dimensional form because the angle I did for this painting was not a normal one. I was above, looking down. I just really wanted to display both the species itself and the tail club. And this is the pose I settled on, thinking that it would be the best. Now, for Salamandra. Salamandra in general tend to be a small size humanoid, but there can be subvariants that are medium sized. So I believe I'm more likely to put it as an optional small or medium size race, with the indication that they are more commonly small size. They have 5 fingers, 4 fingers with one thumb, and are able to act as a mix of warm and cold-blooded. However, they need constantly moist skin and partially breathe through their skin, so they tend not to cover it too much. However, they can survive a full 24 hours once dry. Originally in the lore, which was made up for Project Imagiscria, featured on this channel, 10% have elemental magical powers or other versions of magic. They are not particularly mammalian, even though they have a humanoid form, and therefore the females don't have human-like breasts. There are supposed to be some that have poisonous skin. This is supposed to be a fairly common feature, as with salamanders, and I believe poison resistance. I'm still working out the finalized 5e version of the rule set for this race, because the one I had before was actually not ever finished, and I need to make sure this one's balanced, so I gotta make sure it's not too OP or too unwieldy. Despite the need for moisture in the skin, I don't want to make this race feel too restricted by needing to be uncovered or too moist, so I'm gonna have to balance that out. I let it dry a little bit there before coming back in, and I made sure to have everything not bleed into each other, although I find that in general gouache dries quite quickly and I can work even right next to fairly wet paint without having it bleed too much. I just really like gouache. I find it easy to use and very enjoyable. The fact that the marble salamander is a salamander that's always been one of my favorites. I was tempted to do something more neon, but I knew it wouldn't print well or scan well in the book, so I decided on the marble salamander. And here's the final look at the Salamandra. For the last one I rolled, and it turned out to be, I decided I really should definitely roll, and I ended up getting the fear fungus on the monsters chart. I was a little less excited to do this, but I decided to do a bit of a sketch in Procreate, as you can see here, to work out the general idea. After I did that, I had to use a white pencil to draw on the black paper. I wanted to record the process here, and I did, but I sped it up quite a bit because it's actually a little difficult to see. It's easier to see this in real life, I find. As you can see, I got several paints out and ready. At first I was going to go around all the dark spots, but eventually I decide I'm actually going to smooth that out a bit and then go back on top of the spots because that's actually going to be a smoother look and more natural and easier. I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that there's going to be a lot of contrast with the black and the black paper itself. And I'm thinking that in the book I might leave some of the black around it to show the contrast. I might even add in a little bit of a painting near it to make it have a sort of terrain, but I might leave it more of a pitch black, like someone is focusing entirely on this fear fungus in the dark, because this is a sort of monster that you could fight probably in the darkness. It's the kind of creature that is meant to be fought and be intimidating and sneak up on you and just be easy to kill without any guilt. The other thing is it can appear in a lot of different areas. It could appear deep in a dark woodlands, or in a bog, or deep in a pitch black underdark cave. I also needed to show these little filament-like legs, which are based a bit on the way that a starfish walks, as well as I was thinking millipedes, centipedes, spiders. I'm intentionally trying to make this thing on the horrific side. I made some of them branch and some of them straight so it wasn't even. It's not a very fast-moving creature, but it is able to move. I needed to look at the stat block again after I rolled this in order to get everything about what it's capable of doing in the design here. And I wanted to keep everything that I paint here is supposed to be intimidating, because these are the sort of things like either you're going to be aggressively being a Salamandra with a tail weapon, or it's something you're fighting. Fear fungus is something you're fighting, so it's presented as a monster. The vampire fish is the most aggressive possible version of the real animal. It's done at an angle, and it's done in a way to make the creature look dangerous, because the game of Dungeons and Dragons and most other tabletop role-playing games that are similar, like Pathfinder, is meant to be a very combat-focused game in general. You can make it less combat-focused if you want, but there's a lot of scary elements and there's a lot of monster fighting. So the illustrations for this book have to focus on the fact that these are dangerous, scary things that you're going to be fighting and destroying. So I really need to focus on that for the artwork. I'm also trying to keep the artwork very clear so you can see what the creature looks like just from the illustration. It should be clear and intimidating. It should look dangerous and like something that might be able to kill you, but also like something you might be able to defeat as a player character. The illustrations also should show unique properties of those individual creatures. Here's a final look at the fear fungus. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon.